Hello, and welcome probably to the most important movie review that we are going to be doing this year. If you're not familiar with the film called Sound of Freedom, I would honestly check it out. It is only going to be out in theaters for a limited time only. Angel Studios, if you're not familiar with them, they've done the Bible series, they've done Jesus Revolution, all true stories, and they're doing this one, The Sound of Freedom. Again, true story. They want anybody and everybody to go see it. The reason why is it's because it's about child human trafficking. If you don't know, there are a lot more slaves today, 49.6 million to be exact, slaves today than there was when slavery was legal. Now, a quarter to half of that is actually kids. However, 2006, one man started to decrease that number and still decreasing or trying to decrease it as much as possible to the day. That gentleman's name is Tim Ballard. He does have his own organization, Operation Underground Railroad. The link will be down below. Or if you want, go ahead and click the Cavalier Studios, purchase a Stop the Traffic t-shirt, and 100% of those proceeds will go to his organization. So let's go ahead, talk about Sound of Freedom.
Hello there, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and children.
Now let's do a little backstory. Like I said, 2006 is when Tim actually started saving and rescuing kids. To today, he has saved over 127 kids, as well as arrested over a dozen human traffickers. That may not sound like a lot from being 2006, but every body counts, whether if it's a kid being rescued or a human trafficker being arrested. Now, let's talk about the movie. The movie itself takes place and it shows how Tim Ballard was an original government special operations guy. He was for Homeland Security, who eventually became and started his own operation. Now, Tim Ballard is played by Jim Caviezel. Don't really know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But also Bill Camp, who plays Vampiro, who is, of course, a wonderful side character in the film that you get introduced to later on. There are other characters that you do get introduced to throughout the movie, but it's primarily those two, and you kind of get a feel for that once you actually deep dive and get to know the characters a little bit more. Now, Tim does start off at Homeland Security arresting pedos, and with that, one of his colleagues actually comes to him and he says, I quit. We arrest all these pedos, these horrible men, but nothing is happening with the kids. The kids are still there, and he can't deal with it. And that kind of starts to make Tim think a little bit more, to the point where when he's doing his documentation of the gentleman that they arrested, he started to look at the tape, and that's when he began a realization of he wants to do more too. So he, of course, plays undercover cop, finds out a little bit more information, and with that, rescues a little boy. Now that is wonderful, but throughout knowing the little boy, and the little boy who's from Colombia shares his story on how he became part of the human traffic, that's when Tim realizes that, this little boy has a sister. Now it's up to him. It's his heroic duty that he feels that he needs to rescue this little girl, and he will go to the end of the earth to actually rescue her. And that's beautiful. That's wonderful. And not only that, but it's his loving wife that gives a full support for him to doing so. So kudos to her and his family that made the sacrifice for him to save countless of lives. But what this film also does is it shows you how kids, especially in Colombia or the third world countries, do become trafficked. And it's unfortunate. It's a horrible thing, whether if they are being kidnapped or even till here in the US, where the kids are being portrayed and asked, hey, do you want to be a superstar? Do you want to be an actress? Do you want to be a model? Do you want to be a singer? And they take the parents' not really negligence, but less knowledge of it, and they tell the parents, hey, you know what, come back later to pick up your kid and everything will be okay, only for the parent to come back and all the kids are missing. They got kidnapped. And that's still happening to today. And this movie not only highlights that, but it also highlights other elements that people don't know, as well as certain words that those individuals use, or what they're looking for, how it's basically moved, or how the kids are moved through not necessarily tankers, but through overseas and on ships, and it goes into great storytelling and telling you on how this operation moves in a certain amount of ways. And by seeing all this, it does pull on your heartstrings. It pulls on your heartstrings a lot, and to the certain point where it gets you angry. And honestly, that's the dynamic of this movie, is it wants to get you angry. It wants to make you sad, because the more people who are angry and sad, the more that the people are going to fight to stop evil men, to stop evil people, because they're not all men. When you find out with this movie, it's not all men. There are women who are part of it too. And like I said, this film is about Tim and his operation. So knowing all of that about the film and what it has, it does showcase exactly how he fights against it to make and rescue the kids. Whether if it's doing sting operations, which the film shows you on how he saves 54 kids, or just one kid actually who gets sold to horrible underground warlords down in Colombia, or drug cartel primarily, and how he rescues the little girl. But the thing is, though, is when you're watching this movie, you don't know if she's going to survive. You don't know if, well, obviously, Tim is going to survive, since, he's the star of it, but you don't know if the little girl is going to survive or when the movie cuts off. And it keeps you wanting more, and it keeps you wanting that little girl to be saved, to be healthy, so that way she can come back to the father, come back to the brother, and her whole family. And like I said, it's such a powerful movie that there's a reason why this movie is being pushed, not only by the studio, but also celebrities as well. Because if you go on Twitter, it's a big talking point. And there's a reason why this film at one point did beat out Indiana Jones in the box office. I don't know exactly when, I don't know the statistics of that, but Indiana Jones is a classic film franchise, and it beat it out. And it's all by word of mouth. And it's all by the studio wanting the people to see the film. So like I said, I'm not going to talk heavily into the film as far as everything that happens, because there is spoiler potentials in there. But all I will say is this: the story overall is wonderful. It's so powerful to the point where it makes everybody in the theater wanting to do more, wanting to help out more, wanting to save those 49.6 million slaves out in the world. So, like I said, this film is a great one to watch. I would specifically say watch it in theaters, buy a ticket to support the studio, to support the cause. Also visit the site for Tim, which again is Operation Underground, or buy a shirt. Leave a comment below, though, if you have seen the film. If not, let us know if you are going to go see it. But what I do know is that they are playing in AMC, Regal theaters as well, so check out those. I don't know how long, though, so it might be a short time. But regardless, though, check this film out. It is an amazing one. Subscribe, like to the video, and we'll see you guys next time on the next movie review.